you ready? The Kornelia Stephanie Show. Wake up to love, your call to action. Join Kornelia as she empowers others to live heaven on earth. Kornelia teaches listeners how to be the authority over yourself, embracing your inner guru. Feel yourself uplifted into limitless expansion, integrating ease and grace in a changing world. This show will cover topics such as unconditional love, your physical body, how to be in extraordinary relationships, create financial and emotional wealth, embracing entrepreneurship in the new earth. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, Stories of Hope, which I love so much, and I know that you do too. One of our first guests today is here to talk to us about how she is helping people change their lives through the work that she's doing out in the world, and I can't wait to introduce her to you. Lindsay Snyder is an author, podcast host, and content creator. She's currently working on something fun and juicy for television. As a former marketing expert, ghostwriter, and leadership consultant, Lindsay brings creativity, humor, and personal development to the table. Everything changed after meeting Jesus at 31. I want to bring her in at this point. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. I'm excited.
So great. So tell us about how everything changed for your life when you met Jesus at 31.
Absolutely. Well, I was the girl looking for love in all the wrong places. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but that was me. And I just broken up with a boyfriend, as we all do at times. And I heard this like mean voice in my head say, "You are worthless, Lindsay. You're disgusting. No one will ever love you. You might as well just give up. You might as well quit." It felt like there was like some unforeseen like thing like whacking me over the head with a crowbar. And I didn't know God at all, but I just said the word God. I was so desperate. I don't even know why I said it, to be honest. And all of a sudden I heard this voice say, "I am right here, Lindsay. I've always been right here." And then I felt this peace come like over the room. It was like a blanket of peace that came over the room. That mean voice like scattered. I mean, it just left like quicker than anything. And that was like my first encounter, that I had with God. And I think it was about 29 at that point, but that was so powerful for me. And so then I went on a little journey, as we do, and I was on a date 4 vodkas in. I was so insecure that I couldn't talk to a man without drinking, without alcohol. And it like gave me confidence or something. And so I was on a date, like 4 vodkas in, and, I kept hearing that mean voice again say like, "Lindsay, he would never like you. Like, you're disgusting. Like, you're ugly." And, all of these mean voices or just mean thoughts. I call them voices, but I know that might like freak some people out, but it's just thoughts in your mind. But I didn't know those weren't normal, or I didn't know those weren't okay. I thought those were kind of just who I was and kind of what was true. I didn't know that you could kind of sort those voices. And so it was about 6 months later that I had been going to a church, like just like once every like 6 weeks. And, I'd stop in and listen, after having mimosas with my friends, you know what I mean? Like I was like, not all the way there, but I was just sitting there. And I remember one day they were talking about the Bible and like how it was written and how it was put together and like all the different authors and all the different books. And I thought, I think this is true. And like, I didn't really want to believe it. And I didn't want any like weird church folks telling me what was true. I needed God. If he was real, Jesus was real, I needed them to come talk to me. And so, they said like, if you want to pray this prayer, if you believe this is true. And I thought, this is true. I just in my heart knew. And so I closed my eyes, prayed the prayer. And then they said, if this is the first time you've ever prayed this prayer, stand up. And I thought, I am not standing up, y'all. I just like stood up, I didn't even mean to. I just stood up. And I remember this man behind me tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Congratulations." And I thought, for what, and I'm telling you guys, I walked out of that church and my whole life, like just began to change. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. So now you have a relationship with God. Now you have a relationship with Jesus. And that was the beginning of the foundation, right? That you're building everything upon. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was 13 years ago, so it's always a journey, but yeah, that was the beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because right around when I turned 30, that was really where it happened for me too at that point. So it's interesting, what happens when you turn 30 is, you suddenly open up to I know for me too, it was at that time where I experienced loss as well, like someone close to me dying. And that also opened up, the conversation, what happens when we die, that conversation. So, but it's wonderful that you found your relationship and that you had that opening because you had to be ready for it and you were. And now you now you're helping other people that possibly have that same negative voice going on that you had going on. It's voices, we all have the voices. You can call it thoughts, you can call it voices, you can call it negativity or whatever, but you developed a course now where I think you call it retire. I mean, something about the inner critic. What is
Yeah, crushing the inner critic.
questioning the inner critic?
Oh
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry, it's crushing the inner critic.
crushing,
Sorry.
crushing the inner critic. So basically, because that inner critic that was, holding you back from really seeing your full, beautiful self, your full esteem, your full, beautiful, shining self was, holding you back. And you were more listening to that voice originally than you were listening to the high esteem of your beautiful self, of who you really are. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And, it wasn't until I read in the Bible that it says God is love, because I was looking for love, right? And it didn't say God was the best at love. And it didn't say God created love. Like it said, God is love. And so I went on this journey of like, well, I want to get to know this person who calls himself love. You know what I mean? Like I was so fascinated by that. And so I went on this very long journey and, learned to like tune in to the voice of love over what I would call the inner critical voice, which could be the voice of fear. It could be the voice of self-rejection. It could be the voice of self-hatred, could be the voice of self-criticism. I had all of those voices going on. But as I learned to connect with love himself, which the Bible says is God, and I learned to start hearing his voice and paying attention to the still small whisper, it it kind of like, I love that you said questioning the inner critic. I don't call it that. That is beautiful because that's what it helped me do. It helped me to start questioning that inner critic, those thoughts that would come. You're worthless, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're a loser. All of a sudden I had the voice of love coming in to help me, and then I could kind of like push away those other voices. And I'm telling you, it took time for me, but it really changed my life. And so yeah, now I have a way of kind of helping people do it in a faster way than it took me.
Right. So you have a course. So you want to tell us about the course?
Yeah, it's called Crushing the Inner Critic. I would love to offer it 50% off for your people with the promo code LOVE until the end of June. But it's very simple. It's basically what I learned over 10 years on how to connect to the voice of love and help the voice of love like crush those voices of the inner critic. And it almost helps you like take the thoughts and put them in buckets, right? So we have like the enemy, the mean voice, I call it, which are thoughts that are coming from actually our enemy. We have an enemy. And then we have what I call like our own self ouchies, right? So we go through life, loss, grief, pain, all of that stuff will come in and kind of sometimes create some of those voices in our souls, right? I dealt with self-hatred a lot. I dealt with fear a lot. So those are sometimes from like just pain that happens in our life. And then there's the voice of love. So I kind of help people sort those different thoughts into like buckets and categories, and then learn to just walk out of them. It's actually a lot more simple than it sounds.
No, I can relate to everything you're saying because I pretty much you're talking about the experiences I've had too. Was talking earlier with another guest on the show with having self-hatred at the core and replacing that self-hatred with self-love. The other thing when you're talking about, God as love, I too had that experience and I can relate to it even before I didn't read the Bible like you're reading the Bible. I had more of a mystical experience through an experience and discovered that God is love. And it was, through my own experience. So it was really interesting listening to you now, like mirror back to me some of the same things that I've had experiences with myself. So it doesn't sound weird at all. It actually sounds true and real. And the whole voices thing is uh when you say we all have the negative voice or the what did you call it, what did you call that, we all have the ouchies, but you called it something else. The
Oh, well,
demons, did you call it demons, did you call
yeah,
it?
there's like the
Oh, the
enemy. I
enemy.
would call it the enemy. Yeah, the
Yeah,
enemy
you
of the
called
soul.
yeah, you called it the enemy. So, and it really is, I mean, it's basically God and the devil.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's right.
It's really that, right?
It
And
is.
so to make it very simple, and you called it the enemy. So it's true because the enemy wants to keep you small and keep you limited and keep you in the negativity of the doubt and the fears and all of the things. And we're here to rise into love, and that's what you're helping people do with your beautiful course.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's right.
Yeah, that's why I understand what you're talking about. It's great. I love that you're doing that. So let's give everyone, social media handles and everything for where they can find your course again.
Yeah. So my website is lindsaymorgan.co and everything is there. So, and all my social media handles are Lindsay Morgan Snyder, just my name. I keep it simple.
Yeah, that's good. Keeping it simple is so important, especially right now,
Yeah.
with all the things that are changing. So before we head out, I want to ask you, what is it that you're the happiest at doing?
Oh, I love that question. Honestly, I love talking to God. It's my favorite thing. And that's what I teach in my course actually is how to dialogue journal with God, with love. And that's like my favorite thing to do. So I mean, I have beautiful friends and a beautiful life and I live near the ocean. I have a beautiful life, but my favorite thing is to hang out and talk to God.
That's so good. That's so good. I love hearing that. I can relate. And I think you and I have a lot in common. I think that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We're going to take a break on the Cornelia Stephanie show. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and tuning into the Cornelia Stephanie show. I'm going to take us straight into our next conversation here with our next guest. Debbie Saroufim is a body relationship coach. After struggling for years with an eating disorder, she now helps women make peace with their body and build up their immunity to diet culture. Debbie works with clients one on one in her private membership community, and she believes that you can uh, live your body even if you don't like everything about it. Live in your body even if you don't like
Love,
everything.
I believe you can love your body even if you don't like everything about it, but you gotta live in it, man. For
No,
sure.
yeah, because where else are you going to be? Be disconnected from your body, be
Right.
judgmental about your body. Welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Cornelia. I really appreciate it. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me here.
it's awesome. I think it's great that we're talking about this subject just because earlier I was on with someone and we were talking about, how I just recently went through menopause.
Mhm.
And one of the things is that, I'm now in a place, I'm on the other end of it now. And one of the things that I learned through that experience is to be softer with the change that my body was going through. And I really
Yeah.
feel like that was what it was all about for me to allow my body to go through this change without expecting it to be in a different any different. You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. And I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. When you say it out loud, you're like, well, of course, I just went through menopause. My body is supposed to change. It's a changing stage. And I think that diet culture really sort of creates this myth that bodies, if you're doing your job and taking care of yourself properly, that your body's just going to naturally look good. And not just good, good's the wrong word. It's going to look a certain way and it's going to preserve that way. And if it doesn't work that or look that way, it's definitely reflective of the fact that you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And that's just not true, which is why, I work with women. I start as young as teens and tweens, and I'm working with some women well into their 70s. And I got news for you. All of them feel the need to apologize for the way their body looks because it doesn't meet social expectations, at least not in their eyes. And I know we're all our own worst critics, but the way you feel about your body has nothing to do with how your body looks. We've sort of been programmed to hate. And if there's no room to have modifications, to have different bodies, then it's really no wonder that bodies of all shapes and sizes, people in all bodies of shapes and sizes, are kind of miserable and not liking themselves. So I want to help you learn to identify where your value is that goes beyond your body. I think diet culture, another myth that it creates is that you are your body, and your body is a reflection of who you are, and your body is just one part of you. So I think when you learn to accept yourself fully, you're able to see the value that you have that goes beyond your waistline or your breast size, or how tight the skin on your face is. You can love your body even if you don't like everything about it. And you might not like, not that you shouldn't like, but you might not like some of the postmenopausal things. You might be like, you know what, I kind of miss this part of my body from when I was in my 40s, but I also miss this part from when I was in my 20s. And missing the old versions of ourselves doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the current ones. So I want
Yeah.
you to feel good in your own body.
Right. And that's, I think, the whole piece in learning to really love and accept ourselves deep at the core of our essence, knowing the truth of who we are and not putting ourselves in judgment,
Mm-hmm.
in judgment. I mean, and that's really where it begins. So I think, there's so many people that, put themselves in such prison with their thoughts and expectation that that's that's the part where we need to get out of it,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to the body. And you called it diet culture.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that people that you see a lot of the people make, the mistakes that they make?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I think some diet culture thoughts, I'll give you some examples because these are some diet culture thoughts that I still sometimes find myself having is, oh, I'm hungry, but I shouldn't eat. I ate enough already. Or, it's too late. You should just wait until tomorrow. Stuff like that. When you are doubting your own body's desires, right? We don't, if we're tired, we don't say, oh, I don't really need sleep. We really, I better take a nap or I'm not going to make it. But we've been really taught through diet culture that we shouldn't trust our own hunger levels. And again, if you're taking care of yourself properly, your body's going to look a certain way. So what I think we need to recognize is that bodies of all shapes and sizes can be healthy. You don't get a choice in the size of your body. If we did, nobody would be fat, not because fat is a bad thing, but because I see the way our culture treats fat people, and it's not very nice. And every fat person I know is trying to lose weight. And you don't get a choice in the size of your body, right? So statistically, 98% of diets fail. So if somebody out there is on a diet and it hasn't worked, it's not your fault. The odds are not in your favor. So I want you to know that if your body doesn't meet those expectations, it's not a reflection of you being lazy or not caring enough or not prioritizing your health. You can prioritize your health and care enough and all those things and still be in a body that doesn't look the way you want it to look. And so we want to start to identify those thoughts of, oh, I shouldn't do this. Who says I shouldn't? Do I say I shouldn't? Why shouldn't I? Should I not? Because if I'm going to tell myself I shouldn't eat something, is it because I'm not hungry, or is it because culturally I've been taught I shouldn't be wanting this right now? Right. And when we learn to identify those thoughts, there's a little bit of freedom we get from them. So I still sometimes feel guilty because I still sometimes have the thought of, oh, I shouldn't have had that. Now I know that guilty isn't a feeling that I need to fix or atone for. It's just kind of a feeling that's going to live there because culturally I've been taught to feel that way, but it doesn't mean I've done anything wrong. Right. And so I want to empower you to be confident in your choices around your body. It's not just around food. It's in health and self-care, and whether you choose to go to the gym or sit on the couch and watch a TV show, because sometimes you just need that too, right? Like we're taught to doubt ourselves.
Yeah, I so like everything that you're talking about, and I'm so glad that you brought up the word guilt. So, I have removed the word guilt from my vocabulary because guilt is not even an emotion. Guilt is a useless feeling that has been put upon us by religion. And we should feel guilty to, take pleasure, or we should feel guilty to put ourselves first, or we should feel guilty for whatever reason, unless you are in a court of law. And unless you're being convicted of a crime, that would be the time, if verdict has been handed down and it's like, now, okay, you're the guilty one. But honestly, other than that, the physical body doesn't thrive in guilt. So that's why you brought it up. Guilt is a useless feeling. The body doesn't like to feel guilty. It doesn't thrive in guilt and doesn't feel good, because you're talking about how we should feel, giving ourselves permission on how we should feel. And guilt is never anything that's going to
I
help.
think you're totally right. And sadly, I think for so many of us, myself included, at least for a large part of my life, guilt was how I made my decisions around self-care.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, whether it was, will I feel guilty for eating this piece of cake, or will I feel guilty for not spending long enough at the gym, or will I feel guilty because I, took a rest day when it wasn't really scheduled in my calendar. And so much of guilt led my entire decision-making process. And I think you're absolutely right. Guilt doesn't serve. And so I haven't personally figured out the trick to just completely eliminating the feeling, but I have learned that when I feel it, I don't have to fix it, right? That it's not a symptom of what you're talking about, which is, it's not a symptom of me having anything to be guilty about. I didn't do anything wrong, which means that if I can master sitting in the discomfort of my guilt, then that guilt no longer has to dictate or perpetuate my choices in life for self-care. I am able to care for myself fully, even if the guilt sort of pops up and creeps in there with that nasty little obnoxious voice that it definitely creeps in there with.
Yeah, it does. That's why I'm saying, just, even the words guilt, remove them from the vocabulary.
Yeah.
Like, when people that know me, this is a pet peeve. It's like, we don't do guilt over here. It's not something we do. So it's a word, and it's certainly not a feeling that I want to slip into ever. So it's been removed from the vocabulary.
I like it. I've removed scales from my house.
Right,
I can remove the word guilt. I'm all for it.
Remove it.
Cornelia, I'm in. I'm getting rid of guilt.
Can you imagine can you imagine all the people that you're helping, all the people that you're supporting, everybody to be guilt-free, and just, because if we didn't know the word guilt, if we didn't know it was even an option, then we wouldn't be talking about it. So it becomes a choice
Totally.
because we get to choose how we want to feel. And guilt is never ever a feeling I choose to have.
Yeah.
Never.
Well,
Right?
I love, you know what? It's funny because I always have sort of these like aha moments with people. And then I take it back to my private community and share it with them. And I'm seeing my private community this weekend. And we had just talked a couple weeks ago about what does getting rid of the scale mean? Does it feel empowering or not? And I believe that this week's group conversation is going to be what happens if when we toss the scale, we also toss the word guilt.
Yeah.
And I love it because I think that is, I'm gonna steal it. And if nobody around knows you, I'm gonna claim it as my own.
Go for it. Go for it. Go ahead and remove guilt from the vocabulary. A guilt-free society. So that's really great. So let's give the audience your social media handles and where do we go?
Yeah, you can check me out. I am on Instagram. I'm at body relationship _coach. I'm very active on there. So if you message me, I will message you back, but you can always check out my website, which is bodyrelationship.com. And I do have a self-assessment on there, which is, if you just to self-assess, if you need a detox from diet culture, which is the only kind of detox I'm actually comfortable with, this self-assessment will help you identify some of your diet culture thoughts. And that is bodyrelationship.com/detox. And that will help you self-assess and see where you are in the diet culture world. We're all impacted by it. It's everywhere around us. So I want zero shame when you figure out that you have diet culture thoughts, because I got to tell you, as someone who teaches and builds up immunity to diet culture, I have diet culture thoughts. It's everywhere. So you don't have to, hey, if guilt doesn't exist, you don't have to feel guilty for having those thoughts.
Right. And so we are guilt-free, shame-free. Thank you so much,
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the Kornelia Stephanie Show. We'll see you all again next time. Thank you, everyone.
You've been listening to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, Wake Up to Love, your call to action. Tune in each week on Transformation Talk Radio. Kornelia's joy is to engage others in practical ways, showing us how to live in the new earth in harmony with our true nature. For more information on Kornelia and her extraordinary work, or to listen to past shows, go to her website at korneliastephanie.com.